Hello, this is Nick with Shallow Magazine at C2E2 2020. I'm here with the amazing Sandy King Carpenter, and we're going to kind of talk about some of the projects that she has coming up. How are you doing this convention, Sandy?
We're surviving. It's great.
That's all you can do.
It's Saturday at a convention.
That's all I can say. This is a normal day.
Yeah, pretty much.
So my first question, which I got really excited about, I've been really excited about, you have the Tales from a Halloween Night, has a home right now at Paramount Pictures. What is are there any new updates basically on like what's going on with it? Where are you in the process of kind of getting it moved along so it actually like comes to light?
Mostly I'm not supposed to talk about it, but right now a pilot's being written by the Van Dyke brothers. And outside of that, I'm probably already in trouble for saying that, but I'm really happy to be at Paramount Television. They're great, they're creative, and it's nice to see the project moving forward.
Yeah, because I know there was a little bit of the hassle that was going on with sci-fi, and it just didn't work out, so I'm very happy to even see I have a home too.
You know what, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Along with that, I want to say the last time we got together to talk, we really got into a huge conversation about storytelling and things like that. And you have had a huge hand in a lot of like what I would consider classic films, like Mouth of Madness, Rumblefish, like Body Bags and things like that. What is something that you've seen recently, if you have, that you feel like is kind of really pushing that narrative of like storytelling and letting it and building a perfect kind of little utopia to be able to tell your story in?
Well, for us or for other people, there's some really cool stuff going on. I mean, Joe Hill's Lock and Key is a series now, and that's great. And, the fact that House on Haunted Hill is doing really nicely over on Netflix. And that's a really nice, tasty little show. Some of the best stuff is coming out of the BBC in England. They've got some really great series going. And I think that television is where some of the more innovative executives have gone, and more risk-taking is going on there, which makes it, therefore, a more challenging and creative environment, and I think more fun for the viewers.
Do you, now, for me, because I look at it from the outside, do you think it's a kind of a perspective of that? Like for you were talking about the BBC, for instance, they just did the Dracula miniseries. Do you think it gives it a little bit more room to breathe when it's like over, like say, a 3-part episode or a season, instead of it just being like you have an hour and a half to kind of cram all this stuff in?
Yeah, it's really been interesting moving into TV a little bit, because you do have, particularly with the limited series, you've got room to expand the story just enough without drowning in it. I really like the idea of limited series. I like the idea that you've got some room to tell the story and go a little deeper in the characters without becoming cookie cutter.
Yeah.
So I kind of like what's happening with people being able to binge if they want to.
That's exactly what I do.
I wasn't sure what it was going to turn into, but I kind of dig it.
Yeah.
I realize I sit down and I watch all of Dr. Foster or Marcella or Broadchurch.
Yeah.
And, and anything Mark Gatiss writes.
Pretty astonishing, honestly.
Well, yeah, because they... and one of the reasons I say the BBC is because I think some of those writers are great at creating the universe and the politics within the universe. And that, to me, is like some really good storytelling, and you can be really immersive.
And now I got 2 more questions for you. One, I just recently found out as well, you have a young adults comic series coming out. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we have a whole Storm Kids is... we're going to have from 5 to 8-year-olds, 8 to 12-year-olds, and then young adults. What is that? 12 to 18. So I'm learning. I'm used to scaring adults. But the very first one out of Storm Kids is Steve Niles' Monica Blue, A Werewolf Story, where we've got 3 issues out right now. And then we're going to have Louise Simonson's Hyperbreed, which is a sci-fi for young adults. And but I've got a real interesting one for the 8 to 12-year-olds that's coming called Grimstown Terror, and that's from Neil Edmonds, who writes the Power Rangers.
That sounds cool. Okay.
It's some. Oh, I've got 2 words for you: booger troll. Come on, if you, how can you lose with a booger troll? And then Jeff Balke, who's been a colorist for me before and stuff, has this little kind of online comic with Stanley the Squirrel. And I went to him and I said, what if Stanley and his friends had a little Halloween one-shot? And I said, you know, when I was growing up, we had Disney's Huey, Dewey, and Louie had, you know, DuckTales.
There was like Alvin and the Chipmunks meet the Wolfman
And, yeah, and little things like that. And I said, you know, give me something with Stanley for Halloween. And he has cooked up a really great kids' Halloween story with Stanley and his friends. And it's got like ghost rabbits. And, you know, so I feel like I now have age-appropriate things for each of the age groups.
Along with like a little bit of diversity as well within the genres.
Yeah, and yeah, because I want some science fiction, particularly for the young adults. I want horror, I want science fiction. And for the younger, I want things that are appropriate to them, because each age group has different fears. When they get on the roller coaster, they have something different they're facing and want to walk off of safely. My horror that I generally do is not appropriate for kids, because we're dealing as adults with different issues, more existential horror. It's, you know, we're dealing with issues of faith, issues of our own mentality, those kinds of things. Kids aren't yet. And even though I have certain parents that'll come up to my booth saying, oh, it's okay, watch his Walking Dead. It's not about blood. It's about themes and what scares you. And what scares us should not be in the kids' realm.
No, I feel like it's along the lines of almost like Bradbury, Something Wicked This Way Comes, and things like that, where you have to face more of an inner monster than...
Yeah, when we're older, it's about us, it's about what makes us who we are. When you're younger, it's more fundamental. You're facing some life truths, like you've lost your job, grandma has died, what's out there that scares me. It's not yet turned inward. And then when you're really little, it's about pumpkins and bunny ghosts, and you know, you really don't want to terrify a 5-year-old. So you just want it to be fun, a fun ride.
Yeah. And then slow build up with...
Yeah, I mean, you want some little spooky things. You're in the dark. Ooh, it's a glowing pumpkin. So I think there's appropriate things to do for different ages. And I want them in my camp, but I want them appropriately in the camp.
No, I completely agreed with it. Because especially I've worked at a bookstore before, so there's aspects like that where you're like, well, what do they like with it? But I got one more question for you, basically. What is something at the moment, whether it be a project that you're working on currently, like music that you're listening to, anything that you're reading at the moment, what is something you are very passionate about that you'd like to share?
Well, I'm really digging, broadening the books. And that does not mean I'm giving up the adult horror. We got some cool stuff coming in. We're putting together Halloween Night 6 that'll be out this October. We're also expanding to Night Terrors, which will be those will be the horror graphic novels that aren't short enough for stories to go in Tales for a Halloween Night. So there's other bigger things from Steve Niles and from other writers that are going to go over there. And I've got a movie coming out for Amazon called Crones.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's directed by Axel Carolyn. I'm real interested in ushering in some projects by other women creators. And we've got another feature in the works for John. And, mostly my passion is working. So you're not really going to hear it yet. I'm reading a really cool book called 14 by, last name's Kleins. I want to say Peter Kleins. I get involved in a story and then I forget who wrote it. But one of my executives at Universal got me to read it, and so now that's what I'm buried in reading.
Oh, that's actually really cool. And thank you for some of the new information on some of the Amazon Prime stuff as well. Check it out. But yeah, this is Nick here with Shallow Graves Magazine signing off. Thank you very much for spending your time with us, Sandy.
Thanks for coming by.
That's why I'm like, it's been a busy day. But yeah, this is Nick with Shallow Graves Magazine, C2E2 2020, signing off. Thank you, guys.